And, of course, we got a full house in the studio today. Joining me, of course, the big guy, along with Porterhouse, and some other guests as well. So,
big day.
Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Let's get a little background music to talk. So, JJ, you kind of hinted at this a little bit earlier. So, tell us what we're doing today.
It's a big day. Is Dan Morrow in the building?
Yeah.
He's nearby.
Is that one on?
Is that one on? Yeah, let's make sure we got...
Hello?
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Here, try that one.
We know that one's on.
Live mic?
Yeah,
All
we
right,
got a hot mic.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Amplification.
Check.
Yeah, so there's Dan Morrow. Dan, come on in. Come right on in. No, very, very special day here at Total Media and throughout Jackson County as we celebrate one of the true, like I said, I'm not going to say legend because, like I said, we throw that word around quite a bit, icons of journalism and the media here in Jackson County, Pete Wilson. If you didn't catch it earlier, we are celebrating 50 years of journalism with Pete Wilson. Pete wrote his very first article. Did I read that right? June 1st, 1972?
Someone else did that research now.
So
We're in the neighborhood.
okay. Talk in there so we can hear you. Get up there a little closer.
All right.
There we go. Yeah, we want to be able to hear you, Pete.
Swallow this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got like a lot of questions, but one of the questions that I was thinking about this morning because you kind of look back and you kind of reflect. Man, 50 years is a long time. Tell us about that very first story. Who sent you out on that assignment? How did that all come about? Give us the very first day 50 years ago today.
Okay. Well, I had just completed my junior year in high school, and the sports, some of the sports at least, had been handled by a young man a year ahead of me in school, David Mossberger, who was graduating from high school in the class of 72. And David was going to leave town. He was heading off to West Point, the United States Military Academy, so he wasn't going to write any more sports. And so they were looking for maybe another young guy to take his place. I didn't really think about wanting to do it, but my late stepfather, Ed Henry, thought that might be a good thing for me to do in the summer, knew that I loved sports and liked to write. And so he approached the late Ed Chapman Jr., who was the publisher and owner of the locally owned paper back then. Ed Clark, the legendary Ed Clark, you can definitely throw that word around for him. He was the editor then, and Ed Henry talked to them about me maybe doing that, and they needed somebody anyway. It did not hurt that the Henry Grocery Company was maybe the main advertiser in the paper then, so I had a little bit of help there. So they gave me a try. And the first thing that I did was go down. It was summer, and so all the high school sports was over, and so they say go down and cover the Little League. So for several weeks at least, I went down and covered Little League games at the Eddie Jones Field there on High Street, and some of the young men who turned out to be great Jackson Ironmen were playing then in Little League, and so I thought that was a big deal covering the Little League games. I talked to the coaches, got the lineups and all like that. Something like that would never happen today, but that is exactly how I started. And then as we moved towards the start of the school year, we covered the high school sports, and one of the first coaches that I covered was Ron Fennick.
Yeah.
Who was the coach at Jackson High School for a number of 5 years, and he and I became friends, and Coach Al Berger was the basketball coach then, and I was just blessed to start out with some great persons that were the coaches then, and they were very patient with me because I was a kid who wasn't nearly as good as I thought I was, and I had to learn along the way, and they put up with me, and the paper put up with me. And what happened there, JJ, was the paper expanded them 2 times a week to 3 times a week, and they were looking to add staff and keep staff. So after my senior year in high school, I graduated from high school. I went to Ohio University and commuted, studied journalism, education at the same time in case I wanted to go into education, because I always thought I'd be a history teacher. That's what I thought I would be. So I did both of those and was able to work full-time to part-time during college, and also work at the paper, and then so it went.
Can I ask one quick question there? One of the things, Chris Bartleson, that we talked with earlier from Hometown Chevrolet, she said, we're celebrating 50 years for you in journalism today, Pete, but she said it actually is longer than 50 because apparently you had quite the legacy of writing for the school newspaper as well before you graduated. Is that true?
Well, not a whole lot, actually.
Okay.
I was on it was the staff of the Skeleton. I don't know.
Okay. The Skeleton.
I don't know whether they still call it that, but I did write a few articles for them. But I was certainly not the newspaper editor. I was not on the yearbook staff of the Oskewow either.
Wow.
So it's just the way things worked out. I was a true rookie when I started out writing those Little League games.
So in case you're just joining us this morning, we are celebrating 50 years of journalism with Telegram news editor and our just all-around great guy and true local media icon. I'm going to keep saying that, Pete Wilson. And be sure to pick up today's copy of the Telegram. Terrific article in there that close friend Randy Heath has written for you, and some wonderful pictures. And we've got Dan Morrow. We're going to take a lot of time. We've got a lot of time to talk. But one question, I know these guys got some questions, but I just wanted to throw it out there because you mentioned Ed Clark and you mentioned, some of those names. Isn't it just really interesting how God puts the right people in your life at the right time to lead you down this path to get you where you are? I mean, I had those people in my life and my career. When you mention Ed, Ed had to be kind of like your Lou Davis almost, someone that really, really influenced you on this journey.
Well, Ed Clark was to local newspapers what Lou Davis was to local radio. No doubt about that. And Ed was a father figure. He was a mentor. He was a professional role model. No doubt about it. Now, he did not go to journalism school, but he was an English major, knew the language and grammar, smart man, could have done a lot of things, and that's what he chose to do. And he worked many years in this field, too. And I'll have to say this. I'm a fan of Ohio University. I'm a Bobcat, went all the way through the school. But I learned more from Ed Clark than I did at Ohio University on the job about people, how to deal with people, how to write stories, fairness, accuracy, the whole 9 yards. I owe a lot to the late Ed Clark.
Absolutely.
Pete, you'd mentioned that you had a secondary education. Obviously, you wanted to be a teacher. You thought if that was kind of your fallback thing. But what's really cool about that is you may not have been a history teacher, but you have helped write the history, at least cover the history that has taken place over the past 50 years. So to be a part of that is amazing. I was thinking on the way in when you were talking, we look to Bob Irvin for the historical aspects of Jackson County and digging into that. But for the last 50 years of what has made Southern Ohio, Jackson, and Benton counties what they are, you have written so many of those words, man, and you have helped put that into the history books of our county, man, and I think that's a great achievement. And to know you and to work with you, it's definitely an honor and a privilege. There's no doubt about that, man.
Well, that is so wonderful for you to say. But it's often said that journalism and newspapers are the first draft of history, and I think it's very important, especially on the local level. And Bob Irvin, who has made such a great contribution to our community with the local history he has written, it's preserved now for all time. He's written 5 books. I think he's working on another one now.
Wow, neat.
But a lot of his history is based on newspaper research. And so that's another thing of the value of newspapers, no matter who the editor is.
And getting it right, too.
And whether it's Wilson or Ed Clark or Daniel Webster William, whoever it is, it's important that the news get out there, obviously, for today's generation. But it is also there. It is a record of what has happened in the community that will be there forever and ever, and now in a digital fashion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Dan Morrow, you know this guy just a little bit. I think you've spent a few Friday nights together, walked the halls of Jackson High School together, done a few baseball games together. Pretty special day, right?
Well, it is a special day, and I'm just honored to be here. I'm glad to be a little bit of a part of it, and we've mentioned the name Randy Heath, and I'm hoping he can make it in this morning.
That would be great.
That would be great, because he's the one that had the history that this is his 50th year on the article. And Randy is a great historian also in our local area. I still call him now when we're doing a ball game against a certain team, and give me some of the history of that.
Yeah.
Give him 5 minutes, he pulls it up. It's amazing there.
Yeah.
And Pete's the same way. Pete and I go back about 4th grade in Kinnison Elementary School. I think Mrs. Lewis's 4th grade class. We kind of became acquaintances. It's funny when you talk about Ed Clark. I've always wanted to say, if there's one thing I wanted to say on this, and this is the sports analogy that I usually come up with. Mm-hmm. How many coaches have you seen not be able to follow a legend?
Yeah.
How many people do you see falter when they have to follow the John Woodens or the Paul Browns or these people? They
Bobby
don't
Knight,
make it. They just don't make it. Somehow he did.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about how hard that was. And think about how blessed our community was to have an Ed Clark followed by a Pete Wilson gave us about, 75 years of journalism done the right way.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty special day today. And it's also it's time for him to finally be on the front page.
Absolutely,
He's
man.
always been on the second page. He's been behind every big event that happens in Jackson for 50 years, whether it's good or bad. Most of them good, because when you see him write those tribute articles, they're amazing. They're truly amazing. It's about time he stepped front and center. And 50 years, and we hope more.
Yeah,
we hope many more.
Hey, look, he can't go anywhere. We're not going to let him lock the front door. He's going nowhere anytime soon.
But he is the best stat man this side of the Mississippi.
Yes,
he always will be. And he's a special gentleman, but, I get to call him friend.
Yeah.
So I get one more that the community doesn't.
You bet.
There's a lot out here that can call him friend, but we've had a special relationship.
Yeah, well, he's a friend to all of Southern Ohio, but a real close friend to you, and that's cool. So a question for you two. You guys have been doing ball games with Dan the Man Dobbins for 30 plus years.
By the way, Dan had to be out of town today.
Okay.
He sends his wishes.
Absolutely.
He is so happy about this too. Feels the same way I do. So we're kind of both saying the same
Absolutely.
thing.
So tell me, guys, you've been doing these ball games together. Do you have one game that jumps out at you like that was probably the best game that we ever broadcast? What is there one that just in your memory over the years that you'd say, yeah, that's the one?
Me?
Yeah, you go first.
No, I've got a few. The emotions are amazing on them because we both love Jackson and Jackson athletics. There's another thing too. You're talking about Bob Irvin, famous historian. I think there's a reason. There's a picture up in the hallway at the high school, and Pete Wilson is right next to him. They're in the Hall of Fame. They are both in the Jackson High School Hall of Fame. So another honor. And he's the kind of guy that will never say something about that, but what an honor that, the people we have seen what he's done. It's amazing. Ball games, gosh, Pete, I got the problem of the last 7 years, my son's been the basketball coach. So just about any win is a highlight for me. But when they first, he came in and Jackson basketball was really struggling. So probably the first year they won 14 games was pretty special to me on there. That was good. And then the next year we actually won a sectional title. So some of those games, doing the games over at Ohio University when they were in the districts, probably my highlights. But I think Jackson has done 24 high school playoff football games.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, Jackson and football kind of go side by side. We have broadcast every one of them.
Incredible.
It is incredible.
What an
and some of the
incredible
wins
legacy.
there are just amazing. The emotions you go through on a Friday night football game, it's different. It's a little different here in Jackson than most places.
Yeah.
And so
it
I
means
would
more.
have to say, the upset down in Cincinnati against
Bacon, Roger Bacon?
Cincinnati Withrow.
Withrow, when they were the number 1 seed, we came in as the number 8 seed,
Yeah.
and we upset them down there. That's right up there. That was pretty amazing broadcast
Right.
there.
The playoff games, I agree. It's hard to pull one of them out, but everybody is so excited at that point, whether they're football fans or not. It's kind of like the Super Bowl on the high school level. The whole town gets excited, not just most of it. And so to be able to broadcast those games, have a game front and center, interview the coach, sometimes the players after the game is very special. And I didn't play sports in high school. Danny Dobbins did, and so did Dan Morrow. But vicariously, I enjoyed sports, as a spectator, even in high school. I was about 6'1", 140 pounds. I would have got my chops knocked off. I wouldn't play football or anything like that. But anyway, it was just we consider it an honor to be able to represent Jackson High School, this company, broadcasting all those football games, basketball games, and now baseball games as well. We just consider it a lot of fun. It is a pleasure to do. It isn't work.
Well, and I will say this, and if you're just tuning in this morning, we are celebrating Pete Wilson 50 years in journalism. June 1st, 1972, that first article he wrote was published, and it's really cool because we've got Ethan Bloomfield in here, our intern from Ohio University, who just had his very first artical published last week. So it's kind of
just hang in there, Ethan. 50 years.
Yeah. See what you got to look forward to.
All the donuts and coffee you want in your name.
But I will say, I know kids grow up, and us parents really never grow up. But living here as long as I have, and I'm not a Jackson guy, but my son goes to school at Jackson. But those kids dream of Friday nights to get to hear Dan, and Pete say their names on the radio, and I'm starting to get a little misty-eyed because, to be honest, I can't wait to hear you guys say my son's name for the first time on the air. So, you know, we're really lucky to have you. But kind of circling back to the games, is there one story that you covered over the 50 years that you say, wow, I'll never, ever forget that? That is probably the biggest story, or is there one that really just jumps out to you is maybe your favorite, or just overall the biggest story that you covered that maybe you never thought you would?
Well, I tell you what, there are so many, and of course, I didn't have time to think for this. I
We
was not
put you on the
I was
spot.
not interviewed for the story. Everybody just did this. But I want to tell you about one game that we broadcast. This was before Dan was part of the broadcast crew, because he was an assistant football coach at Jackson High School when Danny Dobbins and I started with our broadcast on WKOV. Our very first broadcast was in 1980. It was at Fairland High School, opening season game. They didn't have a place for us in the press box. So know what we did? We were on the roof at Fairland High School with a tape recorder. It wasn't a live broadcast. Yep. And the roof sloped a little bit, and I worried the whole game, not only just about the broadcast, but about falling off the daggone thing. So that sticks in my mind a good bit too. But as far as, you know, the number one story, as you know, in the newspaper, you have good news and you have bad news. You're around tragedy, you're around controversy, and you have all the good things that happen in the community, the way a small town rallies in times of need and like that. I remember all of those. I remember the people who stepped up and been true heroes in hard times or whatever. JJ, honestly, I can't think of a single story that sticks out. It's just the opportunity for me to be on the front lines and be able to report it and hopefully do it as well as I can for our readers.
Right.
I will go there. When we're talking about the sports stories, there's a couple classics. And, there are two that come to my mind immediately. One, when you guys were first hired, we were doing tape delay broadcasts for Lou Davis's station. Yeah. They played them the next morning, and kids listened to them. Everybody was
absolutely.
amazing.
I remember.
On Saturday mornings. So Friday night, we're at Logan High School, the old Logan High School that had the stage. And they, you know, we're here to do a broadcast. So we're sitting up there with our backs to the wall. You got the out-of-bounds line right in front of you there. And we're doing a game, and it just happened my youngest brother was playing on that team, John Morrow, along with Rick Milburn and numerous guys in that era there. So I had some emotions going with the younger brother playing in the game. Late in the game, we're doing this broadcast, and we've got the equipment sitting in our lap. No table. They just put us in the corner there on the gym floor. Just happens my brother hits a game-winning shot right at the end of the game. I've got the equipment in my lap. I jump up, cheering. The equipment goes to the floor. Everything goes off. So we get into the car. We're driving home from Logan on 93, and we turn it on. We're listening to it, and then it just stops right at that moment. And Pete, you remember this.
I do now.
This is pathetic. We recreate the post-game show after that shot. Pete's in the background, the back seat, trying to be crowd noise. Andy and I are trying to explain what just happened. We take a commercial, we come back, and then give the post-game stats and everything.
The magic of radio.
The car on the way home. Now, how pathetic.
That's great. That's creativity.
Yes.
Right, the production department worked overtime on that one.
And then the other one that jumps out to me is this was one time we dabbled in this, and a good friend of mine, Preston Mustard, decided to have a wrestling match down at the middle school gym, which was the high school at the time. And it was a pretty big to do, and it was for a charity fundraising type thing. And he talks us, and I don't know how he did it. He's a salesman. Do the broadcast. We'll do it, and then we'll play it again. That was when we played Monday Night Football game. Right. So we had the TV camera down there. Jim Davis doing the film. Pete,
Dr.
and
Jim.
Danny doing a wrestling broadcast, trying to figure out how you do wrestling broadcasts on there. But the amazing thing was they had Bull Curry Jr., and they had the Sheik, one of the most guys in the history of wrestling there that day. And we're doing and they'd have these multiple matches. They had celebrity referees that night. It was a very local thing. pretty fun going on. But then the last match was here's Flying Fred Curry and the Sheik come out. They never get in the ring. They're fighting on their way out of the locker room. They're fighting around the crowd, and all of a sudden they're right in front of us. And I think Sheik bangs Curry's head against our table where we have all our equipment set up. And just out of the blue, I said, "Take it to the ring, Sheik." He looked at us and screamed, remember? Grabs the table, throws it up in the air.
Lou Davis's $500 camera.
Pete grabs a piece of equipment. I grab a piece of equipment. Jim Davis, I think, just fell out of the way. And Dobby falls to the ground and the table falls on his arm. Danny is one of the greatest natured people you would ever want to know. He gets kind of mad. He's mad about it. We're holding the equipment, still trying to broadcast. He gets up. He says, "I've had enough of this garbage." He takes off. So we play it up that Dan Dobbins has been seriously injured. And he might
have been. We didn't know for sure.
He's being rushed to the hospital. He's just out in the mezzanine just being mad.
That's classic. That is so classic.
That is one of them that comes back in my mind. And actually, that Monday night, I had multiple calls to my house while that's playing and want to know how Dan's doing.
I will say the Sheik's probably pretty fortunate that Lou Davis wasn't there. If he's going to crash his equipment, we might have had like an impromptu match.
Well, the crazy thing, good friends, Bob Evans, who was principal, he was not happy.
No. He was sitting scowling in the corner the whole time. But the crazy thing about it was the wrestlers didn't get hurt, but our broadcasters.
How's that all work out?
Take it to the ring, Sheik.
I wish I'd have taken it back.
So we've got a big day, Pete, for you. Again, you're going to be over on Main Street TV coming up at 9 o'clock with Jennifer and Hammy and everyone over there to reminisce and talk a little bit more, hoping maybe Dan Morrow can hang around. Then, of course, a big luncheon. A lot of folks, your friends from the past and community dignitaries going to be stopping in to wish you well. And like I said, we're just so lucky to have you. And, we're really looking forward to the next 50 years. Like I said, you can't go anywhere. It's like the Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. But I guess one more question for you that I was thinking about, because I remember it well when the radio bug bit me. When did it bite you? When did you really know that, man, this is my passion. This is what I really want to do with the rest of my life?
Probably within that first year that I was working, because as I said, I had myself ticketed to be a history teacher because I just loved history and all social studies. And so I thought that was something I knew, and that I always thought and still do that teaching is one of the most important professions that you can do in your life, or a career that you can have. But I also saw not that I was important, but I thought that what I did was important.
Absolutely.
Reporting on the news. And so in a small town, that's even more important because, the big-time TV stations, the big-time newspapers, the big-time radio stations aren't covering you, like they are in the city. So you know that what you do is important. You have an important role in the community, and you can see everything that goes on, good and bad. And so I knew within a year that if I did that, I would be professionally fulfilled. And on top of that, I liked it. When I was sitting in the dentist's office one time, JJ, I read one of those little snippets in Reader's Digest, and it just kind of blew me away. One of those little news capsules. 62% of Americans don't like their jobs.
Yeah.
And I liked my job, and I said, I like my job. It's a decent living. This is what I want to do. And so all I had to do was find somebody who wanted me to do it or keep doing it, and that has been, of course, a blessing here because. I was at Waverly for 7 years because that was one of the locally owned papers that Junior Chapman had, and then that the successor Chain had. And I did my due diligence down there, learned a lot, but there isn't a place that I'd rather do it than right here in Jackson and in Jackson County, and to be able. There's so many folks that come through college or whatever, and they can't work in their hometown. It doesn't match up with their career or whatever. Mine was I've been able to do that, and so I never stopped being thankful for that, JJ.
Absolutely. And yeah, you hit it right on the head. Find what you love to do and then call it work. And, a story, and I used to share, I share this with Amanda Crabtree, and she'll text me a lot, make the coffee. And that story basically comes from Coach Bowden, Bobby Bowden's son. Coach Bowden, when he came to Akron to be the head football coach there, he had coached, under his father at Florida State. And there was some assistants there that he got to be very good friends with. And so when he got the Akron job, a couple of those assistants thought that they would be moving on to bigger and better things with him at Akron. And he did take one of them with him. And one of the other guys that thought that he was going to be interviewed and get a job didn't even get an interview. And he calls him up and he's like, look, Coach Bowden, you didn't even give me an interview. You didn't even ask me, if I wanted to come with you. What gives? What did I do wrong? And he said, you didn't make the coffee. And he said, what do you mean? He said, you didn't make the coffee. He said, you did everything that my dad asked you to do. You were there for the meetings at 6 a.m. If we had a 6 a.m. meeting, you were there. If we had a 5 p.m. meeting, you were there. But you got there at 6, you left at 5. You did no more. You didn't do the little things. He said, the other coach that I hired, he was there early. He made the coffee every day. He did the little things to make the other people better above him. He was more valuable to me. He made the coffee. So guess what? Every morning when I walk in here, the coffee's made. And you know who makes it?
Pete
Wilson.
Yeah.
Hey, I will
and he
say
washes the pot.
One last butt in here, but for years, Pete and I worked side by side up on Main Street, Call Auto Sales in the building right next door. And we had jobs that were a lot of involvement, a lot of time. I'd sing the blues 6 days a week, 65-hour weeks, this and that. I was singing to the wrong guy. 7 days a week, 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
And I'd finally get a Sunday off and I'd go by in the Blue Dart sitting right by the building. So Memorial Day, just the other day, I'm driving by and you can see through there from the main street. There's one car in this whole lot, and it was parked right in front of the front door. It was the Blue Dart. So I call him. I say, get out of there. Well, he goes over about 15 things he still had to do, and then he was going home. So that's making the coffee. And that's a great story.
Yeah, and it's a true one. And I come in here at all hours of the night. Pete and I see each other pretty early on Sunday morning sometime, and late at night when I leave here. Pete Wilson's still here, and I always kind of tease him. I'm like, Pete, are you sleeping here or what, man? So I don't know anyone that works any harder, and I don't know anyone that deserves this day and the recognition and that front page article. And again, thanks to your good friend Randy Heath. What a great guy. And I know you probably got some good stories with Randy over the years, and but we love you, Pete, and we certainly thank you for everything that you do for Total Media, the Telegram, Jackson County, and our community. We are very, very lucky to have you, and we hope you're going to be here with us for a long, long time to come, my man.
Well, I am touched, but honestly, I'm just doing a job, and I like to say that I'm along for the ride, and I've been blessed to be along for the ride, and God willing, it'll be a little bit longer.
All right. Well, thank you for taking us along on the ride with you.
Thank you for all your kind words, and JJ, you yourself with what you're doing here since you've come back to the radio. That's a passion thing on your part too. That's exciting to see. It's exciting right now to be part of Total Media and all the things that's going on across our various media platforms. I think we have a good team here, and it is true, the old saying, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Absolutely. The answer's in the building, right?
I hope so.
All right. Well, Pete Wilson, enjoy your day. Dan, thanks for coming in, and we
to be here.
Yeah, and we appreciate Pete. And so, Matt, thank you for letting us hijack your show. I know we got a lot of commercials to play and time to make
all good.
up,
We'll get caught up.
But we definitely appreciate it. So, Pete Wilson Day here at Total Media, and we hope you've enjoyed our segment and reminiscing a little bit with Pete. And if you want more of that, again, join us over on Cable Channel 15, actually Main Street.
Main Street TV. Yeah, we all still say Cable Channel 15.
We still say Cable Channel 50, but Main Street TV coming up at 9. So more coming up next with Matt and the Morning Crew right here on your home of real fun radio, Mix 96 FM. Hey there, it's JJ Hale here, inviting